Level 1, $0. The laptop is open on a kitchen table that still has yesterday's dinner plate on it. You haven't moved it. You've been staring at the same spreadsheet for 40 minutes and the number in every column is 0. Not low, 0. You quit nothing yet. That's the part nobody believes later. You still have the job. You still clock in at 8 and clock out at 5 and come home to this table and this laptop and this idea that hasn't made a single dollar. You registered the LLC 3 weeks ago, $89 to the state. That's the only transaction that exists. You told 2 people. Your sister said that's exciting. Your best friend asked what it actually does, and you didn't have a clean answer. So you talked for 4 minutes and watched his face stay polite and blank. You bought a domain, $12 a year. You built a logo yourself in an afternoon because paying someone felt like admitting this was real before it was real. You have 11 followers on the business Instagram. 9 of them are people who already know you personally. You post at 9 p.m. after the dishes are done and delete the caption 3 times before you let it stay. Nobody comments. You check anyway, twice before bed. Your day job pays $58,000. That number still runs your life completely. Rent, groceries, the car payment, all of it comes from the job. None of it from this thing you keep calling the business. Like saying it enough will make it true faster. At $0, you're not an entrepreneur. You're a person with a spreadsheet and a Tuesday night and a feeling in your chest you haven't named yet because naming it feels like a promise you're not sure you can keep. The first rule, at $0, the business isn't a company. It's a decision you make again every single night after the version of you that's tired says quit. Level 2, $4,200. Your first customer pays. Not a friend, not a favor. A stranger who found you online and paid $340 for something you made with your own hands over a weekend. You stare at the notification for longer than the moment deserves. You don't tell your day job boss. You don't tell most people. You tell your sister and she says, I told you so. And for the first time, it doesn't sound like flattery. It sounds like data. Over the next 4 months, it happens again. Then again. Not consistent, not predictable. A customer here, a customer there. The kind of revenue that makes you check your bank account like it might be a mistake. You're still working the job. You're doing this business between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. And on weekends, you used to spend doing nothing. Your friends notice you stop showing up. You don't correct the story they're telling about you behind your back, the one where you've become distant. You know why you're distant. You just don't have the words yet to explain that distance is the price of the thing you're building. $4,200 over 4 months isn't a living. It's proof of concept dressed up as a number. You reinvest almost all of it. Materials, a slightly better camera, a $60 course on the platform you're selling through. You keep $400 for yourself and call it profit even though you haven't paid yourself for the 100 hours it took to get here. The second rule, at $4,200, you're not building a business yet. You're building evidence that you're allowed to keep going. Level 3, $30,000 in a year. You do the math on a Sunday and it stops you cold. Not because it's a lot of money, because it's the first time the number has a shape you recognize. Close to a third of your day job salary, made in the hours everyone else uses to rest. You raise your prices for the first time. You lose 2 customers instantly to the increase and gain 3 new ones within the month who never blink at the new number. You learn something nobody told you directly. The customers who leave over a price increase were never loyal to you. They were loyal to the price. You hire your first contractor, $200 a month for someone to handle the parts you're bad at. It feels indulgent and necessary at the same time. Your day job starts to feel different, not worse exactly, smaller. You sit in a meeting about a project timeline that used to consume your whole nervous system, and you realize you're doing math in your head about inventory instead of listening. Your manager asks if everything's okay. You say yes. You don't say that you've started living 2 lives, and one of them is quietly winning. You almost don't sleep some weeks. The business runs on the hours the job doesn't take, which means it runs on the hours you used to spend recovering. You don't recover anymore. You just keep going. The third rule, $30,000, is the level where the business stops being a hobby with invoices and starts being a second job you're not getting paid enough for yet, and you know it and you do it anyway. Level 4, $120,000 a year. You quit. You'd rehearse the conversation with your manager for 3 weeks, and it still comes out wrong. Too apologetic, too much explaining. He wishes you luck in a tone that suggests he doesn't expect a call in 6 months asking for your old job back. You walk out with a cardboard box of nothing important and a feeling in your stomach that isn't quite excitement and isn't quite fear. It's both, occupying the same space, refusing to resolve into one or the other. The business is now the only income. No safety net job running quietly underneath it anymore. The first month without the job's paycheck, your hands shake slightly opening the banking app. The number's fine. It's always been fine on paper, but paper and body are different languages, and your body hasn't caught up to what the spreadsheet already knows. You hire a second contractor. You rent a small unit, $600 a month, because your apartment can't hold the inventory anymore, and your neighbors have started asking questions about the boxes in the hallway. Your family asks when you're getting a real job back, not unkindly, out of a worry that has nowhere else to go. You don't get defensive. You've stopped needing needing them to understand it in real time. You just need them to still be there when it's done proving itself. The fourth rule, $120,000 is the level where you stop having a safety net, and the absence of the net is the exact thing that makes you finally move like you mean it. Level 5, $400,000 a year. Something shifts that has nothing to do with the money directly. You hire your first full-time employee, not a contractor, an actual person with a salary and a schedule that depends on you being solvent every single month, whether you feel solvent or not. The weight of that lands differently than any invoice ever did. You used to only be responsible for your own rent. Now you're responsible for someone else's. You stop doing the parts of the business you used to love, the making, the building, because your job has quietly become something else. Hiring, managing, forecasting, putting out fires you didn't know existed until they were already burning. You miss the version of the work where it was just you and your hands and a Tuesday night. You don't say this out loud because it sounds ungrateful next to a number this size. You open a business bank account that finally, genuinely feels separate from your personal life, though the anxiety about it never fully separates. A supplier misses a deadline and it costs you $8,000 in expedited shipping to cover a client commitment, and you absorb it without telling anyone because that's apparently the job now. Absorbing things quietly so nobody downstream has to feel the cost. The fifth rule, $400,000 is the level where the business stops needing your hands and starts needing your judgment. And those turn out to be completely different skills that nobody warned you would replace each other. Level 6, $1.2 million. You hit 7 figures in annual revenue, and the first thing you feel is not triumph. It's audit anxiety. You hire an actual accountant, not the software you'd been using, a person who looks at your books and asks questions that make you realize how much you didn't know you didn't know. You've been profitable on paper while bleeding cash in ways you couldn't see, inventory tied up, receivables sitting unpaid for 90 days, a margin that looked healthy until someone showed you what healthy actually means at this size. You have 9 employees now. Payroll runs twice a month, whether revenue is up or down that particular week, and the predictability of that obligation becomes the thing that keeps you up more than any single bad month ever did. A competitor undercuts your pricing, and you watch 2 long-standing clients leave over it within the same quarter. It costs you $60,000 in projected annual revenue, and you can't afford to match the price without breaking your own margins, so you let them go, and it feels like failing even though the math says it was the correct decision. You start making decisions you can't fully explain to your team because explaining them would require admitting how much you're still guessing. The sixth rule, $1.2 million, is the level where the business finally looks successful from the outside while feeling more fragile than it ever did at $30,000, because now there's more of everything to lose. Level 7, $4 million. You take on your first outside investment, not because you need the cash exactly, but because the growth you're chasing requires it faster than reinvested profit alone can fund. The term sheet takes 6 weeks to negotiate, and you read every line twice, sometimes 3 times, because you understand now that the sentence you don't fully grasp is the one that costs you control later. You give up 15% of the company for $800,000. The number in your account is larger than it's ever been, and simultaneously the company feels less like yours than it has since the kitchen table. You move into a real office, 3,400 square feet, because the unit you rented at $600 a month stopped being able to hold what you'd become. You have a management team now, people who report to people who report to you, layers you never planned for and can't fully see through anymore. A board meeting happens quarterly, and for the first time, someone outside your own head gets to ask why. Why did revenue miss projection? Why did the new hire not work out? Why is the margin compressing in Q3? You used to only answer to yourself at 1 a.m. on a Tuesday. Now you answer to a room. The 7th rule, $4 million, is the level where you stop owning your company completely and start sharing it, and the sharing buys you speed at the exact price of your own unilateral say. Level 8, $10 million. You are 41 years old, and the company employs 34 people whose mortgages, in some literal accounting sense, run through decisions you make on ordinary Tuesdays. You don't do the work anymore, not the way you used to. You do almost none of the thing that made you fall in love with this in the first place. You spend your days in strategy, in hiring, in fixing problems 3 levels removed from the product itself, and some weeks you can't remember the last time you touched the actual work with your own hands. You think about the kitchen table sometimes, the plate you didn't move, the 11 followers, the 4 minutes you spent explaining what the business did to a friend whose face stayed polite and blank. You could explain it in 1 sentence now. Everyone already knows. A private equity firm reaches out about acquisition. The number they mention over an exploratory call is larger than anything you let yourself imagine at $0. Larger than the version of you sitting at that table could have processed as real. You don't say yes, you don't say no either. You sit with it for a week the way you used to sit with the spreadsheet, except this time the silence isn't about whether you're allowed to keep going. It's about whether you still want to. The 8th rule, at $10 million, the business finally has everything it needed to survive without you, which means for the first time since the LLC and the $89 filing fee, the only remaining question is whether you want to keep going filing fee. The only remaining question that matters is what you actually wanted this for. Somewhere right now, someone is sitting at a kitchen table with a laptop open and a spreadsheet full of zeros. They registered the LLC 3 weeks ago. They told 2 people. One of them said that's exciting. The other one asked what it actually does and got 4 minutes of an answer that didn't quite land. They post at 9 p.m. and check for comments twice before bed. They don't know yet whether they're building a business or just building evidence that they're allowed to keep going. The zero on the screen doesn't tell them which one it is. Only the next Tuesday night does, and the one after that. The business doesn't start at the first dollar. It starts at the first night you don't quit.